Okay, everyone, welcome. Here we go. We're ready to get started. So we're holding today in. By the way, we haven't said it in a while. Please, feel free to send out the links to our YouTube channel and to whoever you want, and make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, because the more subscribers we have, the more people interconnect, and the more people are able to connect to the Torah of Rebbe Nachman through that, which is a big schus for all of us. So shkoyach for that. And okay. So we're in Torah of Kabbalah. Torah of Kabbalah started out with this idea that we are able to elevate. We are able to elevate sparks of kedusha. We're able to fix the world through doing mitzvos with simcha, is what we finished with last time. And we saw this whole inyan that it's through the whole Kabbalistic system that we interact with Hashem. And we spoke about this in depth last time. And we finished off by saying that with we see b'shvil shayidei ketoros malin me'aklipas chiyusam. We take the holiness out that's been left down in the klipas, down in the tumadic aspects, the impure aspects of creation, and we take that holiness and we're able to elevate it up. How is ketoros connected? The mitzvah of ketoros is the incense that was burned in the temple. How is that connected to what we're talking about? Because it says by the ketoros yisamach leiv. Ketoros makes people besimcha, gives people happiness. And that's connecting this idea that when we do a mitzvah besimcha, we are elevating those sparks of kedusha up into where they're supposed to be, raising them up to holiness, back to where they came from. And the last thing that we said last week, one sentence, V'zehu b'chinas malchus da'asiyah ha'olam min ha'klipas. This is this aspect of malchus da'asiyah, the lowest. So everybody knows, remember, this whole lesson is all a bunch of little Kabbalah lessons. You have to know Kabbalah a little bit to understand this lesson, right? So we said that there's four standard universes. We have Atzilus, Beriah, Yetzira, and Asiya, going from top down. There's more than that, but that's the standard ones that we talk about. And then below the world of Asiya. So the world of Asiya is where we find ourselves. It's the world of action. Asiya means to do, means doing. So in the world of Asiya, below the world of Asiya is the realm of Klipa, is the realm of those negative spiritual forces that exist in the world as a way to provide a balance of between good and evil, a mix of toiv v'ra, like the Eitz Hadas toiv v'ra, so that we have free will. We have a pull towards those things that we don't want to do, and we have a pull towards kedusha. And so the world of Klipas is below the world of Asiya. And so, by definition, that means that the world of Asiya is the world that has a connection to that world of Klipa. It's right beside it, Ki'ilu, right? And it's because of that we find ourselves in this place of the world of Asiya, which is right by the Klipas. Now we're going to say a couple things today that are foundational principles in Kabbalah, and especially in Chassidus. So everybody's probably heard before that al pi Chassidus, one of the we like to ask, what's the purpose of creation? Why are we here? And there's various different answers given, and I always like to point out that the answers are not different. I mean, they are different, but they're really all pointing to the same idea. But one answer that we hear a lot through all of Chassidus, Chabad Chassidus likes to use this term a lot, and so do they all, but is that Hashem wanted to make a dira betachtonim, a dwelling place for His holy presence in the lower world specifically. If Hashem wanted to stay up in shining light all the time, He didn't need us. He didn't need to create all these universes, and the lowest of them all, the world that we find ourselves in, Asiya, right? He didn't need that if He just wanted everything to be filled with light. But Hashem wanted us in the way that Rabbi Joey Rosenfeld explains the derech of Rabbi Itchemeyer Morgenstern, that Hashem needed us to be able to show that even in the places of darkness, Hashem is there. The same way that He's there in the place of lightness. Exactly the same. Just that our job is to make that revelation, is to reveal that Hashem is there. And He needs, quote unquote, we don't like to ascribe the word need to Hashem, but in order to allow this to unfold, we have to find ourselves down in this lowest place. We have to find ourselves in the lowest of all universes, in the world of Asiya. And in that world of Asiya, which is connected to the world of Klippa, right? We can draw out the kedusha from that place which is so low and so dark. And really, it's amazing. This is what Hashem wants. This is what Hashem wants. This is why everything was created, in a certain sense. So this is where we left off last time. This is our job in the world. And so it comes out, practically speaking, that when we find ourselves in the realm of Klippa, what does that mean? What does it mean? It could mean a lot of things. It could mean someone who didn't grow up with any connection to Yiddishkeit, let's say, and at some point they become aware of Judaism and Hashem, and they begin to get connected. They are being pulled out from a world where before they found this out, Hashem didn't exist to them. It was a world of darkness. It was a world lacking of spirituality, lacking of connection to the Almighty. And they're in this place of darkness. And they pull themselves out, and they begin to do this work that Rebbe Nachman is telling us now of elevating those lower levels upwards. It could be everyone goes through struggles with their Judaism, right? Sometimes I don't do things as well as I do other times. I don't do mitzvos as well as I do other times. Sometimes it's harder to learn. Sometimes it's harder to do kindness, tzedakah, giving charity, davening, tefillah, prayers. Sometimes it's very hard to pray, right? Depending on where we're at. Sometimes I do it great, and sometimes it's very hard to pull myself there. When I'm in those places where it's very difficult, I'm in such a place of darkness. I'm in such a place of a low level of malchus that Hashem put me there in order so that I can say, in this place where I am right now, I can find Hashem here even. I can find Hashem here. I can show that Hashem is here and was here the whole time. I can do it. And I can elevate the world in this way. It could be when we're going through struggles. Unfortunately, we face tremendous difficulties. Some people have to deal with poverty. Some people have to deal with a difficulty in finding a soulmate. They're not married. Some people don't have children. Some people get tremendously ill. Some people have to deal with family members who are ill. And these places to be are so difficult to navigate. It's so hard to live through these things. How many tears are shed? I think about this all the time. How many tears are shed when a couple gets divorced? How many times do those two people end up crying their eyes out on their own? How much do the kids cry? So many tears are shed in such a situation. When someone passes away, how many tears are shed? How low do we feel sometimes? Right? So it's from those places that we can lift up, that we can elevate, and that we can pull out and raise up from those places something that angels could not raise up. The angels in heaven cannot do it. But the fact that we are down here in this place, that we finished that line right before Gimel, Zeh bechinas malchus d'asiyah ha'oila min ha'klipas. This is the malchus of Asiyah, the lowest part of the lowest world that rises up from that place of klipa, from that place of constriction, of darkness and difficulty. Such an important concept. So, interestingly, the Torah of the Arizal is, let's go a little farther, and in a few minutes I'll come back to the Torah of the Arizal, and we'll talk about it. Don't let me forget. Okay, Gimel. On page 74 in this book, volume 4. Ukesha Adam oisa eza mitzvah. When a person does any mitzvah, yesh koyach ba mitzvah, that mitzvah now has the power leilech ula oirer kol ha'elamis la'avodas Hashem yisbarach. Has the power to go and arouse all of the other worlds to avodas Hashem, to serve Hashem yisbarach. Like the pasuk says, Binarenu uvizikeinenu neilech, bitzoinenu uvivkarenu neilech. The pasuk says, I'll explain it in a second, with our children and elders we will go, with our sheep and cattle we will go. Ze bechinas malchus malbish netzach hoid yisoid shem klei halicha. This is the aspect of the sphere of malchus in clothing the spheres of netzach, hoid, and yisoid. The three spheres of netzach and yisoid. Shem klei halicha, which are the vessels of movement, of walking. They represent the legs of the spheres. Okay, there's so much to explain in these two sentences that we just said. So let's unpack it little by little. Rebbe Nachman says that when the person does a mitzvah, that mitzvah has the power to go and arouse all of the worlds to avodas Hashem, like the pasuk says. So this pasuk is going on when Moshe Rabbeinu was asking Paroi to let us go out of Mitzrayim. We'll see why Mitzrayim is interesting to the Arizal here in a second. But Moshe Rabbeinu is asking Paro to let us out of Mitzrayim, right? And Paro says, okay, you can go and you can do your little stuff in the desert, but that's it. Just you and just the men, that's it. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, no, binarenu, with our children, uvizikeinenu, and our elders, we're going to go, but so with our flocks and with our cattle, we're going to go. So Rebbe Nachman says that this is code word for us over here. So he says that the when we're talking about the flocks and the cattle over here, we're talking about the lower levels of existence. Obviously, they're the animals, they're the behemoths, and this level of behema refers to the lower level of existence. It refers to these aspects that we can elevate out from the dirt, that we can pull up. So this pasuk is saying, in a certain sense, it's saying we're gonna cause the upper worlds to have an aliyah, to have an ascent. Who's the upper worlds? Oh, that's our elders and our children. How are we going to do it? Through also bringing up the lower levels, which is the sheep and the cattle. Through raising them up, we're going to raise up all the levels. So this is what Rebbe Nachman says. Through a mitzvah that we do, like this, b'simcha properly, we actually cause the whole entire universe to be aroused to avodas Hashem. Right? And we'll explain it more now. He says in the Kabbalistic words now that we see the metaphor, okay, let's see the Kabbalistic part. So, everybody knows here, probably, the layout of all of the 10 spheres, right? Sorry, I have a creaky chair today. But, so there's 10 spheres, yeah? From the top down. Keser, Chachma, Bina. Those are kind of the intellectual ones, which are sometimes Chachma, Bina, and Das, but usually in Kabbalah it's Keser, Chachma, Bina. Then Chesed, Gevura, and Tiferes. Then at the bottom, Netzach, Hoid, Yisoid, and at the very bottom, Malchus. So our human bodies are built in the image of God. And the whole system is this spiritual image of God in a certain sense. And so our bodies have this same layout. It's not like we use our bodies as a way to understand Hashem. Our bodies look like this because this is what the spiritual world looks like. We are like a projection of what reality really is, but in an illusion type of way of the lower physical world that we live in, right? So in those worlds, Keser represents something that's above my head. We've talked about before, crown, things that are above intellect. And one of the terms that's used to describe it is the idea of ratzain. Desire that exists before even a thought, before you can even, quantify, qualify what that desire actually is. Before you can even imagine what you're even desiring. There's this aspect of desire that's above even thought, right? Desire and pleasure also is up there in a certain way. Then you have chokhmah and bina, which are the intellectual faculties, the seichel, right? Wisdom and understanding. Then, so those are in the brain. Then you have chesed and gevura are representative of the two arms. The right arm is chesed and the left arm is gevura. Tiferes represents kind of the heart, the center of the torso. And then Netzach and Hod are the right and left legs. And Yesoid is the reproductive organ of the man. And then Malchus is beyond that. In sometimes Malchus is the female, is the partner for the man. And sometimes Malchus is the kingdom depending on how we look at it, right? So here, Rebbe Nachman is saying, this whole concept that we just said, when we do a mitzvah, we have the power to arouse all the worlds above, like we're taking the sheep and the cattle, the lower existences, and we're raising them up together with the children and together with the elders. Everything is getting elevated and raised up. Says Rebbe Nachman, this is this aspect of the sphere of malchus enclothing the spheres of Netzach, Hod, and Yesoid, Shem Klei Ha'alicha. That means that the sphere of malchus in Kabbalah, when something arises and ascends above the lower level, which will be like a chitzonius dika. I don't know how to say this in English. The external compared to the world above it is very external, right? So it will elevate and enclose the level above it, right? So when we do this, we begin this arousal from below. We do a mitzvah of simcha. We're taking that sphere of malchus and lifting it up so that it goes and encloses those aspects of Netzach, Hod, and Yesoid, which are the Netzach and Hod are the legs, are the things that which are the Klei Halicha, says, the parts of us that we use to move with, to walk with. This is the first step. We elevate Malchus up to enclose Netzach and Hod and Yesoid, but let's keep it to Netzach and Hod for now. The left and the right and the left leg. This is like also what the pasuk says, Toras elekav baliboy loy simad ashurav. The Torah of God is in his heart. His steps will not falter. When the Torah of Hashem is in his heart, his steps will not falter. What does that mean? Why? Because he's moving now. He's moving this holiness up to the things that do the steps, that are moving, that are causing movement, that are going to arouse more elevation and more connection to Hashem. Zebechinas halichos eli malki bakodesh. What the pasuk says also, the going of my God, halichos eli, my King in holiness. Shemailin malchus letoicha kedusha. Why? Because we take up malki, which is malchus, up to holiness. We ascend it and cause it to rise up. He malbeshes es halichos eli. It's now going to enclose the halichos, the things that walk, the walking of my God, which is Netzach, Hod, and Yesoid, the legs of the upper spheres. Leilech, now they're going to go and be ma'orer and arouse kol hadavarim la'avodas Hashem yisborach, to arouse everything to avodas Hashem. So with all that, let's step back a bit. We're saying that my one little mitzvah that I do over here, right? Like we're saying, in the dark world that we're put in over here, the angels can't do this. We could even sort of say, don't get mad at me, anybody, we can even sort of say that Hashem can't do this without us. Right? We do a mitzvah in the darkness. We go through something and we come out on the other side, down here. We begin a process that elevates all of creation. That mitzvah that we do causes malchus to go up. And then it causes that next level to move and to arouse the rest of creation. Right? And it's going to keep going step by step. So when I do it, it's like when I do this mitzvah, something begins to reverberate upward through the entire Bria, through the level of the angels, through the level all the way up to Atzilus. Tremendous, tremendous power that we have in doing a mitzvah. Give tzedakah with a smile. You know what's happening? It's going crazy up there. Right? Pray to Hashem, talk to Hashem with your heart, like you really mean it. The universe is exploding. This is what he's telling us. And it all has to come from this place of darkness. This is where we are. The olam of Asiya, the malchus of Asiya, is right touching the world of klipas. And so it's no mistake, by the way. They're beautiful, beautiful idea. If you like intellectual sounding Torah classes, listen to Rabbi Joey Rosenfeld on his first class in a new series that he's doing on the Arizal. And there's a very long explanation over there about the Arizal. But one of the things he brings down there in this way is that the Arizal was born in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem. And from Yerushalayim, he learned over there and became a very big Talmid Chacham in Nigla and in Nister. But he left Yerushalayim, and you know where he went? He went to Mitzrayim. He went to Egypt. And he spent years secluded on the banks of the Nile River in Egypt. And that's the place where the whole entire prophecy of the Kabbalistic system was revealed to him. Kabbalistic system could not be made up by a human. All of the interactions and all of the miraculous things that go on through Kabbalah, nobody in the world has ever been smart enough to figure it out on their own. It was all revealed to him through Eliyahu Hanavi, whatever it is. And so it's from this place, but you hear what's happening over here. The deepest Kabbalah, this Torah that we're learning now, in a certain sense, specifically the Torah that we're learning now, about the world of malchus being the place which is connected right to the klipa, and the place where we can elevate those things that need to be elevated, was revealed to the Arizal only on the banks of the Nile River. Not in Jerusalem. Not in Tzfas, even. On the banks of the Nile River. Because that's the whole thing. This is the whole teaching, the whole Arizal, all of Kabbalah, encompassed down into one thing, is this. That when we do a mitzvah b'simcha, we elevate everything from the lowest places, and it just goes and creates fireworks in Shemayim and changes everything. It's the whole entire thing. And that's why, like we explained last time, the Arizal said himself that all of the hasagas he had, all of the great Torah that he was able to have revealed to him, only happened to him, his words, because he did mitzvahs with simcha. Right? Not because he was a scholar. And so this whole concept, all of this Torah, is reverberated. It first came with Moshe Rabbeinu, then it was revealed through Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, then came to the Arizal, and then after the Arizal, it came through the Baal Shem Tov. But the Baal Shem Tov and Rebbe Nachman are like the last two pieces of the puzzle. Because what did the Baal Shem Tov and Rebbe Nachman do that we didn't have from the Arizal? The Arizal's Torah is very much in the intellect. It's very hard to learn. It's kind of dry, for the most part. Right? But the Baal Shem Tov came along and said, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take that Torah of the intellect, the wisdom, the Kabbalistic wisdom of the intellect, and I'm going to bring it down into the heart. And this is what the Baal Shem Tov did. He said, everybody, this wisdom of Kabbalah belongs in the heart of every Jew. This is what he did. Came along Rebbe Nachman, and what did Rebbe Nachman do? Rebbe Nachman showed us that this wisdom of Kabbalah, the highest wisdom, is there when we're in the lowest places. Even in the very lowest places is where the light is going to shine the brightest. This is what Rebbe Nachman brought it down to. And this whole channel is all leading us to the end of days, where this is the Torah for now. When we're in the darkest places, right? That's where the light is going to shine the brightest. So with all that in mind, this is what this Torah is really talking about. When we do a mitzvah with simcha from these terrible dark places, seemingly dark places, we turn on a light that changes everything, that elevates the whole entire universe, says all four universes. And we're only on the first step so far. So let's move on next to Ois Dalet. Okay, so malchus ascended and enclosed Netzach Chod and Yesod, the vessels of movement, of walking, right? Dalet. Vayedei ha'isarus, hainu vayedei ha'alicha. Now, through this arousal that happened by malchus going up, through the halicha, now that the legs are aroused and are moving, nimshach bracha lechol ha'elamis. We now are able to draw down blessing into all the worlds. Blessing is drawn into all the worlds. So what's happening now? Netzach Chod Yesod malbishin es chesed gevura and tiferes. This is what happens now, because once the Netzach Chod and Yesod, those spheres are aroused, they don't stay still. They now ascend up to the next level. They go up and ascend over and enclose chesed gevura and tiferes, the right arm, the left arm, and the heart. Right? So everything is ascending and enclosing over the level above it. So why is it that when Netzach Chod and Yesod ascend and now enclose Chesed Gevura and Tiferes, that's now drawing Bracha in, drawing blessing in? Because the area of the legs is now enclosing over the place of the hands. Because Shehem Hayadayim, because Chesed and Gevura is the hands. Shemisham Kol HaBrachas. From the level of Chesed and Gevura, of the hands of the upper worlds, that's where all bracha is drawn in. In Torah, Nun, Zayin, I want to say, Torah 47, Rebbe Nachman explains over there that the way that Shefa, divine bounty, I don't know how to translate that well, comes into the world, is it goes from the upper levels, Chochmah, Bina, through Chesed, and then through Gevura, and then in one of the pathways, it goes through them all in order, right? So first it goes to Chesed and then to Gevura. Rebbe Nachman explains it's as if the energy is received by the right hand, Chesed, and then given down by the left hand, which is Gevura, into the world. It's the hands that transmit the blessing into the world. So he says that if a person over there, this is just a side point, you should learn it in depth. It's really geschmack. If a person has an illness, right? Any power that anything in the world has to be able to heal somebody only has that power because it comes from above. It gets a blessing from an angel, from a spiritual force above, right? Especially with herbs, we're talking about it. Certain herbs have certain powers, right? So it only has those powers because it comes from above and goes down, and the spiritual energy from Hashem gives it the power to heal. And so if that energy of healing doesn't come into that thing, then it's not going to heal you. So Rebbe Nachman says over there, if you mess up and you break the bonds between the right and the left, then you make it so that you're not going to be able to be healed from the conventional medicine that should heal you, because it's losing its power. You've broken the chain from the right hand to the left hand, and that power cannot go from Hashem into that herb that is supposed to heal you, right? And the way you break that, by the way, is by messing up, making a blemish in your amunas chachamim. Because the Torah says what the chachamim tell us to do, we can't stray from it, right or left. The chachamim are the bechina of right or left. And if we mess up the right and left, then the right and left hands are the things, the right and left hands of Kabbalah, of all the universes, is what bestows bracha onto us, what gives us blessing. And if we break the right and left, then they're not passing the blessing down to us. We can't get it, right? That's a bit of a side point, sort of, right? But here, let's go back to the positive now, everybody. We did a mitzvah b'simcha. We caused the olam of malchus to be aroused, and it ascends up and encloses Netzach Chod and Yesod, the legs of the upper worlds. And the legs are now aroused to movement, and they move upwards, and they enclose Chesed, Gevura, and Tiferes, the left, right, and left hands. And those hands have the power to give bracha, to give blessing. So when we do this, we're causing blessing to be drawn into the world. And this is like what the pasuk says in Bereshis, an odd pasuk that we would have trouble understanding if we didn't hear this. The pasuk says, "V'yivarach Hashem oisecha l'ragli." God blessed you at my feet. Why are the feet? What do the feet have to do with blessing? Because it's only once this level of Kabbalah of the universes, when the level of Netzach and Hoid is which represents the feet, are aroused and they ascend up to the level of the hands. Now they cause blessing to come into the world, but it has to go through the feet first. Nimtza sha'oilin haraglin bebechinas yadayim. The feet go up to the level of hands. So the legs, the spheres of legs, go up to the level of hands, and the hands give blessing. Bebechinas. Like another pasuk, which doesn't make much sense until we hear this in Shoftim, Vatelech yad bnei Yisrael haloich v'kasha. The hand of the children of Israel went and prevailed. Right? How did the hand go? It should have said the feet went. The hands don't go. Feet go, right? He's explaining over here with these two psukim that we have one pasuk that's talking about legs being the blessing things, and the other pasuk is talking about hands being the walkers. Right? They don't fit exactly properly. He's saying, oh, you know why? Because sometimes they come together and they do the same work together. Sometimes the hands are like the legs, and sometimes the legs are like the hands in the world of Kabbalah. But once again, this is all just part of us. Our little mitzvah of simcha is sending shock waves through the universe and causing everything to move upwards, everything to ascend, everything to be spiritually aroused. Unbelievable. Ve'ikar ha-brachas mehayadayim. And the main bracha comes from the hands. How do we see this? The bechinas, like the pasuk says, Vayisa Aaron es yadav el ha'am vayivarchem. Okay, you're probably all thinking it already. But the pasuk says that Aaron HaKohen, right, Moshe's brother, lifted up his hands to the nation and blessed them. What does the Kohen do? What do the Kohanim do when they do Birkas Kohanim, when they do the blessing? They put their hands out with the Mr. Spock fingers, right? And the blessing comes through their hands, right? I remember I had a Sephardi rabbi actually, that way back in the day, and when the Kohanim, he had little kids at the time, and when the Kohanim would do Birkas Kohanim on Yontif, he would bring his children over to the Kohanim, and he would take the hands of the Kohen and put them on the top of the heads of his children, like this, because he wanted that. What everybody does? What? That's not what everybody. No. Oh, we do that. Yeah, no. I do that to my kids. I've never seen this happen ever. No. Like I'm saying, just he would go, the Kohanim on Yontif, right up there. He would bring his kids up and take the Kohen's hands and put them on his head. Yeah, when I bless my children on Friday night, I use my hand also, right? But he would take the Kohen's hands and forcibly, sometimes, put them on the head of his child. Yeah. You're a Sephardi. You're a Sephardi. Yeah, my dad's Kohen. Yeah. Oh yeah, right. A Sephardi and a Kohen, your father is. That's already that's double. So anyway, you see this concept, right? The hands are the place of blessing. When we bless our children on Lil Shabbos, right? We put our hands on top of their heads, and that's the inyan. Hands are the place of bracha. Kamosha Kasa, like the pasuk says also, Miadei Abir Yaakov Misham Roye Evan Yisrael. From the hands of Yaakov's champion, from there the shepherd, the rock of Israel. So the hands, this is going on where the bracha that Yaakov gave to Yosef, right? So he called Yosef that he became the king in Egypt basically, and so he gave, but he was tremendously successful. So he gave him this power to be able to make blessing in the world. So the Abir Yaakov is really Yosef Atzadik, and it's from him where all the shefa was going to come into the world. Is basically what we're saying over here. Okay, awesome. Everybody with me so far? Crazy stuff. This is crazy stuff. This is like one of the most, if you think about it and you learn it carefully, it becomes one of the most inspiring things we can imagine. Like every little mitzvah you do, besimcha. It's like everything, the whole universe, all the universes are affected. Shockwaves going through, reverberating through all of creation. It's unbelievable. Okay, letter Hey, let's go. Ve'ikar habracha shenishpoin mehayadayim, the main blessing that comes from the yadayim, heim seichel, is seichel. It's a good like if you knew Yiddish growing up, right? It's a word that you don't like to translate. Yeah, you have seichel, you don't have seichel, right? So seichel means intellect, right? It means brains, it means intellect. Lamata nasim l'chol echad echad kafirat soinai. But when it comes downstairs, it goes into each person differently according to their ratzon, according to their desire. Like the pasuk says, "Poseach es yadecha umasbia l'chol chai ratzon." Right? You open your hands and satisfy the desire of all life, of all living creatures, all living people. Right? So meaning, we're seeing a new pasuk over here. So we say this, 3 times a day in Ashrei, in our tefillas. You open your hands and satisfy the desires of everyone. Right? So you see, first of all, that it's coming from the hands. Hashem opens his hands, and that's where the bracha comes from. But a new aspect, that it goes according to the ratzon, the desire of the person. Right? So, what does this mean? What does this mean? Let's, by the way, in most Sidurim it says, and I have a few different Kabbalistic Sidurim that explain it in different ways, but you're supposed to say this pasuk with particular kavanah. So if you want to see another thing that our holy brothers, the Sfardim, do, usually when Sfardim say this pasuk, they put their hands out. Right? Poteach et yadecha. I'm not making fun. I am making fun a little bit, but with love, don't worry. So they put their hands out and say it and kiss their hands, right? So there's tremendous Kabbalistic significance to this pasuk. And if you take the first letters of these 3 words, Poteach et yadecha, Pei, Aleph and Yud, it adds up to 91, which is the gematria of the 2 names of Hashem put together, Yud Ke Vav Ke and Aleph Daled Nun Yud. So when those 2 names together make a special name of Hashem, which is Yud Aleph He Daled Vav Nun He and Yud. And if you ever see in a siddur, sometimes they write in a siddur when they don't write the whole name, they just write Yud Yud. You ever see that? They write Yud Yud for Hashem's name. This is the reason why. It's not like some kind of weird shorthand. It's this name, a Yud at the beginning and a Yud at the end, and all those 2 names of Hashem intermixed in the middle, right? And this is and the last 3 letters of these three words form the word chatach, right? Ches, taf, and chaf, and those 3 letters are together one of the 42 names of Hashem, and it's the name that refers to parnasa, sustenance, right? Tremendous significance, kavanas to have in this thing, but at the very least, to realize at that point and think that everything I have comes from Hashem. All my parnasa, all my sustenance comes from Hashem. But he's adding something over here, which is tremendously important, that it goes according to the person's ratzon. What does that mean? It says, V'chein, mi shehu, we're going to talk about this for a little bit, by the way, this is important stuff. V'chein, mi shehu bal nefesh, someone who is a bal nefesh. So he translates it over here, someone who's spiritually sensitive. A Baal Nefesh means someone who takes these things seriously, who their connection to Hashem is important. Yiddishkeit is important to them. A Baal Nefesh, they're careful with things, right? Such a person, tzarich lachavin ritzoynoi, has to focus their ratzon, their desire, sheyamshich birchas seichel, that blessing of wisdom should come down onto them. Bebechinas Sikles Yadav, just like, unbelievable. You guys remember when Yaakov gives the blessing to Ephraim and Menashe, Yosef's sons, right? So Yosef brings them to them, and he puts them in the right order according to age. And Yaakov Avinu, what does he do? He switches his hands, crosses his hands over, and gives the right hand blessing to the wrong one, well, it ends up being the right one, but what appears to be the wrong one, the pasuk says the word that it uses for that is he sikel es yadav. It's like he intellectually intended on purpose to put his hands in the right place, right? What do hands do? What have we been seeing over here? What do hands do? Hands bless. Hands give blessing. And what's the main blessing that hands give? Seichel. Sichel es yadav. Seichel. He used those blessing hands to give seichel to little Ephraim and Menashe, right? Unbelievable. This is what the pasuk says. Sichel es yadav. V'chinas mikdash Hashem koinenu yadecha. Like the pasuk says, a sanctuary may your hands establish. A sanctuary, Hashem, may your hands establish. So what does that have to do with what we're talking about? So intellect, seichel, is synonymous sometimes with the term das, right? Everybody knows that? Yeah? Das, knowledge, intellect, seichel, it's all kind of somewhat in the same realm, correct? So an interesting aspect of the Beis Hamikdash is that the Gemara says, the Gemara in Bracha says that someone who has das, it's as if the Beis Hamikdash was built in his days. Right? Das is connected to the Beis Hamikdash. So like this pasuk. So what does the pasuk say over here? Mikdash Hashem, koinenu yadecha. The house of Hashem, the Mikdash Hashem, which is synonymous with das, is established by your hands. Hands make the blessing of das. Hands make the blessing of seichel. So what do we got to be careful of over here? I think he says something over here like this. Does he say? Let me see. Hold on. Yeah, we got to go a little farther. So where are we holding now? Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, Shemalbishin, Es Chachma, Bina, and Das. So now, the Chesed and Gevura, which are the hands, which are the things that bless, what do they bless with? They bless intellect. So now, the Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, that level, is ascending now up to the level of Chachma, Bina, and Das, of the intellect. Right? And all of these psukim are coming. This is one of the most ingenious Rebbe Nachman things of memory. Like if you really think about all these psukim, how they all come together and how they integrate with this Torah of the Arizal, and with Rebbe Nachman unlocking it in this way, it's like out of this world. Everything's following the pattern the way it's supposed to, and ending up that this blessing is coming into the intellect as the spheres ascend and enclose the higher level. Just because you started with this little mitzvah, b'simcha, all of this begins to unfold, right? So let's see now the beginning of the next section, because this is going to take us into familiar territory. Okay, you ready for this? We're just going to see maybe like the first line here, and then we're going to talk maybe for the rest of the class. We'll see. Letter Vav, page 82. V'tzarich lahamshich emuna. We've gotten this blessing of seichel, of wisdom, of das now, into our mind. But that has to be, in order to make it good, we have to draw in emunah into our seichel. Because you cannot rely on your seichel alone, as kayadua, he says, without anything further. Obviously. As is known, right? So everyone here knows this very well because we've been talking about it for the last however many months with the Chacham and the Tam, right? But let's go back one step and then come back to here. We said over here that Hashem opens his hand to give the blessing, and the blessing is going to go according to a person's ratzon, according to a person's desires. Just like we see that the Gemara tells us, the way that a person wants to go, from above, they push the person in that way. They give the person everything they need to go that way. Meaning, if you want to be you really want, not like the people here would want, right? But if you're a person who really wants to be a bad guy and wants to go totally off, and wants to like go and do terrible things, and just wants to forget everything, forget Hashem, forget everything, and just go and be a gambler, or I don't know, go and be a hedonist, whatever it is, right? So you're going to get support from above. If that's what you want, if that's your true desire, so that's going to unfold in front of you. That's going to happen. If you remember the way we explained this from Torah Lamed Aleph before, that when the story of your existence is constantly being written, it's the nekudas, the vowels that give that story movement, are determined by your own kisufim, your own desire. The nekudas hakesef, these points of vowels, are determined by your desire. So the way that your story is going to be written, the way that your life is going to unfold, is dependent on a person's desire. So where do we aim? It's great. We're making something happen that's going to bring blessing, bracha, from Hashem onto us. But where do we want it to go? Are we aiming our desires in the right place? Because if I ask for blessing, and I do things to stimulate that blessing, but my desires are for schmutzy things, then it's not going to go well. I'm going to draw energy into the world, and I'm going to channel that energy into a bad place that's going to hurt me, in a dark place. It's not good. So I have to always make sure that my desires are for good things, my longing is for good things. Right? What do I long for? What do I desire? It's a very important, thing to ask ourselves. Do I want just, I was in a store recently, a fancy kosher grocery store somewhere, not here, although it applies here also. And I was like blown away by the incredible, crazy amounts of food that we have nowadays. Kosher food, like they have all kinds of prepared, everything you can imagine. They have the sushi going from one end of the world to the other, and like, I'm sure it doesn't exist in other cultures, but they have like deep fried sushi. I'm sure that's only Jewish, but I don't think that's a real type of sushi. But you have now meat, prime, everything perfect, all cheesecakes, everything you could possibly imagine. Every physical desire you could want is there. And is it good for us? I'm saying for the most part, no. For the most part, no. If we can use it for Shabbos to make things special, Shabbos and Yontif, special occasions, it's great. But for the most part, and if we can use it properly, it can be good. But for the most part, it's that it can take up so much of our desire. Like, we talked about this a lot during the Chacham and the Tam. But people who become a foodie, and like now, their whole life is like watching YouTube videos of how to cook certain things and special ingredients, and hours and hours and hours of their existence can be put into this. I'm not talking about someone. I see one of our friends on here is a chef. I'm not talking about a chef. I'm talking about a normal person, right? Who just, I bought like a couple years ago, I bought a smoker because I was like taken in by this whole the taivas and the whole desire and all this thing about smoking meat, and I was like, oh, this would be great, whatever. Anyway, I got rid of it after a year because I don't have the time or patience for it. But you could spend your life getting deep into these things, and if that's where you aim, it's not usser, it's not against the rules, nothing's treif, we're saying over here. But if you aim your rutzain at barbecued meat, so you'll have a lot of barbecued meat and all the complications that go along with that, and not blessings in the place that you really want it, presumably, which is in ruchnias and in nachas from your children and in great relationships between spouses and Torah and inspiration and connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and all these things. That's where we really want to aim it, right? So we have to aim our desire in the right place is the first thing. Is the first step over here. Then the second step is that he's saying over here now in Ois Vav, in page 82 over here, is that the blessing that we're going to get is primarily going to be in the realm of intellect, of seichel. And if we're getting blessed now with seichel, we have to be very careful that we don't turn into a quote-unquote chacham and be blessed with wisdom that ends up becoming... By the way, I've been working on terminology for our Chacham and Tam series. So the terminology for this wisdom that I'm thinking about is toxic wisdom. Right? There's two types of wisdom that I'm thinking about for the Chacham and the Tam. Because the Tam also needs to have a certain level of wisdom. You can have toxic wisdom, or you can have a wisdom that nurtures your tamimus, nurturing wisdom. Right? So if we just get filled up with wisdom, with intellect and smarts, and it becomes toxic, we're using our wisdom for things that we have no business doing, and we're developing things with our wisdom. It can be waste of time things, like these things that we're talking about, becoming a foodie or someone who wastes hours and hours and hours. Hobbies are good. You heard from me first. It's good to have hobbies and outlets and everything, but sometimes people can get sucked in to such an extent that their whole life becomes this useless wisdom that they're forced, right? That's one aspect that can come. The other thing that can happen is our wisdom, if you have the trait of being someone who's an overthinker, right? So your whole life can be destroyed by too much wisdom. And you're constantly thinking, what's going to be if I'm too scared to do this? Because if I do that, then this will happen. And if I do that, then this will happen. And like we've talked about, sometimes overthinkers have difficulties achieving certain milestones in life, like finding a spouse, getting married. Why? Because they can't let go of thinking of the possible outcomes that may not be what they want to be. Oh, but if I marry this person, I see that they have this one thing, this one little flaw over here. And if I get married to this person with that one little flaw, then what's going to be? It's going to play out, and I'm going to have to live with that flaw, and it's going to come here and there and there. Everyone has a ton of flaws. We all have a lot of flaws. And whoever we get married to is going to have a lot of things that upset us and annoy us. It's just going to happen, right? So we have to. But if we're thinking and worrying, what's going to be if they don't have these perfect things that I've decided? Somehow I made a list, and the person I marry must have all these qualities, right? Okay, you just won't ever get married then, right? I'm not looking at anyone in particular here at all. I promise. I'm looking at right. It's too much seichel without any emunah. Right? This is it. To have a successful marriage, you have to get married, and you have to know that everyone has flaws, and you have to know that the husband and wife relationship, by definition and on purpose from Hashem, is going to be the relationship that shows you your flaws and helps you to fix them. Gives you the opportunity to work on yourself. And that's where you need to draw in the emunah. If I can go into that relationship knowing with this seichel, with this intellect, what I'm getting into, and with the emunah that it's for the greatest purpose in the universe, and it's going to propel us somewhere to the type of relationship that is way, way up and beyond, right? So if I can live in that way, now I have a chance. Now I have a blessing of wisdom, and I have the emunah to guide it in the healthy way, that it's going to be a true blessing. Because if I'm blessed the other way with wisdom, and I don't have that aspect, I'm in huge trouble. Huge trouble. Right? How could you ever take a job anywhere? But what if I work that? What about the person? And I don't know, they might be a little too mean for me. Or if I go there, then it's going to put my career path that way. And now I'm going to be going down one path. But what if I want to go down another path? What if that's not the right path for me? Right? It's too much. There's too much wisdom and no emunah. Just take the job. Start working and see where Hashem puts you. Okay, there's different things to think about, and it's not always quite that simple, but it should always be almost that simple. It really should be. It really should be. So this is the Indian of the wisdom that we're talking about over here. The wisdom needs to be a blessing and not a curse. Wisdom needs to nurture our tamimus, our holy simplicity, and not become toxic. or we're in trouble, right? And that's where we find ourselves here. I think maybe one second. Yeah, I think we'll hold it here for today at Vav, and we'll begin there next week. So, this is wild Torah, hey? Rebbe Nachman. Woo! But Ashreinu that we have the Torah of Rebbe Nachman, I'm telling you. It's not much amazing. Does anybody have any questions or comments or anything else in those realms?
Were you asking about the word shefa before? I didn't know if you were waiting for an English word for that.
Yeah.
Abundance?
Yeah, it's a decent word, yeah, abundance. It's just the word I often use to translate it comes from the same English word as bounty.
Right.
But it just sounds weird. It sounds too old-timey. Yeah. Abundance is a good word for shefa, bounty, yeah. Any other comments, questions?
What if you do a mitzvah without simcha? It's not as powerful, it's less powerful, but it's still powerful.
Yeah, exactly. A mitzvah without simcha is pretty good.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to do, and chas v'shalom, God forbid, anyone should ever say, I'm not in a good mood, and therefore I'm not going to do any mitzvahs. Mm-hmm. No. It's still fantastic. And it still does things upstairs also. But we're talking over here now about the incredible power of doing a mitzvah b'simcha, and the extent to which it's going to reverberate through the worlds. You know, a lot of people who learn Kabbalah, I don't know enough to say it myself and to know exactly what it means and how this breakdown is. But they say, you know, if you do a mitzvah, because people who know a lot of Kabbalah and do a mitzvah, they have certain intentions, Kabbalistic ideas, like we just said about this pasuk. You could say it and just understand the basic meaning of the sentence, or you could say it in Hebrew without even knowing what it means, or you can think about and have in your mind all of these different Kabbalistic word-letter combinations, names of Hashem, and where the shefa is coming from, right? And it gives you a greater connection to the mitzvah, and it puts it a little bit on steroids, let's say, right? But I've heard different Mukubalim say when a person does the mitzvahs, the things that are supposed to happen automatically, even if you don't have the right intention. Something changes, and it becomes on a higher level somehow when you do it with a deeper intention. And I don't know exactly what the gedarim are, what the exact differences are between those two, but one thing's for sure is that it's healthy and it feels good. Rebbe Nachman tells us himself that it's very healthy and important that we're always moving, because he says that movement creates heat, and movement creates happiness, creates simcha, right? So we got to always be moving. So one of the benefits of constantly growing in our understanding about mitzvahs and being able to maybe figure out how to do a mitzvah with more simcha or with greater understanding on a deeper level is because I'm constantly growing and expanding and getting connected more to the depth of the spirituality of the mitzvah and thereby closer to Hashem. But if I never change and I never adapt and I never grow in the way I do things, I'm still doing them. It's still good. And like the Mekubalim will tell you, the things are still happening. It's still working, right? But it's tremendously inspiring to learn more, to grow more, to do that mitzvah now with a greater understanding and a greater intention, right? It changes everything.
So the Darim is like a proportion or an assignment or like a...
It's like
to specify something.
Yeah, it's like there's a good English word for this. I can't think of it at the moment. Like yeah. Anyway, anyone online got anything to say today? Great to see everybody, by the way. Who's there?
Why did Ari have to go down to Mitzrayim? I know that's where one of the rivers to Gan Eden is, but and let's say the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai got all the Zohar in Eretz HaKodesh. Why?
Right.
Like, why did he have to go down? Maybe if he would have stayed, he would have gotten in in Israel also, and not in Mitzrayim.
So, Alyssa, I can tell by your voice who we are. Great to hear you. The way that we're explaining it over here is that it's really it's a piece of the puzzle being completed. In other words, as we explained at the very beginning, the whole purpose of everything is that like Hashem doesn't need anyone to shine the light on the angels and in the high worlds. There's something special that can only happen in the lowest places. And the Torah of Kabbalah, the Torah of the Arizal, explains to us how when we do things that reveal Hashem in the world, when we do mitzvos, how we are elevating those lowest levels up to the highest heights, and how only we in this place that Rebbe Nachman is telling us over here, the malchus de Asiya, the lowest point of the lowest point. This is why, by the way, in Bereshis, right, on the word Bereshis, and Rashi brings down different explanations of why the Torah uses the word Bereshis. One of the explanations is Bishvil Yisrael Shenikra Reshis, because the whole purpose of all the creation is because of the Jews, Bishvil Yisrael. That's why Hashem created everything, and He didn't put us in the world of Atzilus. He didn't put us way up high. He put us low down, because it's from the lowest places that we can that only we really can pull up the kedusha that's trapped there. This is the reason why all of Klal Yisrael had to go to Mitzrayim, because according to Kabbalah, we had to go there because there was huge holy spiritual energy trapped there that had to be redeemed, and that's why we went into that terrible place. And we have this concept in the Torah, Maisa Avos Simin Labanim, that what happened to the forefathers happens to the children. So just like we had to go there to make this, and what happened? What was one of the biggest things that happened in Mitzrayim was this tremendous revelation, this Hisgalus Hadas. Hashem was revealed there in a way that was never before. All these nisim, all of the Eser Makas, the 10 plagues happened over there, right? This was everything that was happening over there was that in order so that all of Mitzrayim and Klal Yisrael should see Shani Hashem, the Torah says, right? The revealing of Hashem, the biggest revelation happens in this lowest place. So the Arizal is like putting in the next and biggest piece of the puzzle. The biggest revealing of Kabbalah that ever happened was with the Arizal. Still, up until now, before and up until then, and just like that, and it had to be there in a certain sense. In a certain sense, it had to be there, right? And just like we didn't just go straight to Eretz Yisrael to become Klal Yisrael. We didn't even go to Tzfat, right? The city of the wisdom of Kabbalah to become Klal Yisrael. We had to go to Mitzrayim. So too, in a certain way, the way that we're understanding this is the Arizal had to reveal Hashem in this way, specifically on the banks of the Nile River, in this way, and then he came to Tzfat, and that's where he found his Talmud, Reb Chaim Vital, and that's where all this Torah was transmitted to Reb Chaim Vital in this short time. I think it was something like 18 months or 2 years or something like that, just a short time. He transmitted this Torah to Reb Chaim Vital, who wrote it down and compiled it, and then the Arizal passed away when he was 38 years old only. That's it. The biggest revelation of the deepest Torah, and it was all by the time he was 38, which is also the same age that Rebbe Nachman died also. Yeah.
That was the purpose.
Yeah, wild stuff. That's the idea.
I recently learned that the reason why he died is because he revealed something that had to be revealed a bit later. He revealed it too soon, but Rabbi Chaim Vital wanted to know it right away instead of waiting. But that also confuses me. Like, why could did you explain to him, if I tell you now, I'm going to die? No,
I'll tell you something. We see from the stories of these tzaddikim that they knew this. like you're saying, they knew this. There was things that Rebbe Nachman didn't want to teach, and he was pushed also. And he said, if I reveal this, something bad is going to happen. He wrote these svarim, and he did certain things, and because of this, it's brought down. He himself said that he lost some of his children because of this, because of.
So why did he succumb to pressure?
So I would humbly say that he didn't succumb to pressure, and that they would not have succumbed to pressure, and that they had a cheshbon and realized that for better or for worse, this is the Ratzon Hashem. This is the way it's going to go. And they revealed what they felt they had to reveal, and that was what they had to do. And I've heard there's something else to do with this. I can't remember it exactly right now, so I don't want to say something about the fact that when big tzaddikim, very high Torah is revealed to them, it's like they have some type of like necessity, an obligation to reveal it in a certain way. I don't know exactly the word, something like this though. But I certainly wouldn't say, and I'm 100% sure, that they didn't give in to peer pressure. Definitely not. If the Arizal revealed it, it wasn't because Reb Chaim Vital was nudging him too much. Right? Fine! Just leave me alone already. It wasn't like that. And he did it for sure for sure with the cheshbon, knowing what had to be. He did say to them, by the way, that he was going to that if they merited, because they were when he was passing away, they were like, we're nothing compared to you. Like, we can't be without you. What's gonna be? He said to them that if you merit, I'll come back to you. And so the next revealer of Kabbalah after the Arizal was the Rashash, Shalom Sharabi. And he's widely considered to be the reincarnation of the Arizal, who came back to kind of finish the job, finish what he had to reveal. He also he took the system, the basic way it goes. I'm sure we've talked about this before. Is that when we had the Zohar HaKadosh in the beginning from Shem Bar Yochai, it's like a closed book. If you before the Arizal, it was virtually impossible or completely impossible to understand how everything fit together just from the Zohar. The Arizal came along and revealed the entire whole system. And once he revealed that whole system and how everything works, all of a sudden, 99% of the pieces of the puzzle fit together. That didn't fit together before. No one understood how. The Rashash came along and added another dimension that then was able to reveal how, like, basically the rest of the steps fit together. I don't know enough to say that everything's fit together. I have no idea, right? But this is kind of the way it went. So there's a real hamshacha, a real continuance and sort of chain of how these things were revealed. But along the lines of the Nile River, I'm saying this is the sweetest, most awesome thing about Chassidus and the Torah of Rebbe Nachman, is that through these five big tzaddikim, going from Moshe Rabbeinu to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, to the Arizal, to the Baal Shem Tov and Rebbe Nachman, we have these five souls that revealed something different that no one else could reveal, and that all followed this thing and kept putting a piece of the puzzle in, so that the Arizal on the banks of the Nile and the whole system of Kabbalah showing us that it's bedavka from those low places that when we shine the light in those low places, we affect the entire universe and we elevate everything up. That's exactly what Torah 24 over here is teaching us. This is the whole revelation of the Arizal. Then the Baal Shem Tov came along, like we said, and said, hold on a second, but it's not just that idea. It belongs in the heart and soul of every single Jew, whether you're the biggest Talmid Chacham or whether you're a wagon driver. We all can do this. Then came along Rebbe Nachman and went even deeper, like lower than the banks of the Nile, and lower than the intellect of the Arizal and the heart of the Baal Shem Tov, and said, even b'hastara shebetoich hastara, even in the biggest concealment, even when there's nothing to say but Aye Makoim Kavod, where are you, Hashem? Even in those low places, the Hashem is there in the biggest way, and you can actually find in the lowest place, you can find the brightest light. So this is the whole hamshacha, the whole continuance, the whole chain of how this happened, and this is Torah 24.
The only thing
That's
If
right.
we didn't have that ability to draw it in at the lowest level,
Right.
we'd never be able to do it.
So Sandra is saying the cherry on top of the whole thing, right? Which is that we find ourselves in such a dark time now, where things are so concealed, and there's so much out there that's covering over, what we should really be connecting to, right? And this is what Rebbe Nachman said about his Torah. He knew that he wasn't gonna live this long, but he said that my fire, Heisheli tukad ad bias Mashiach, my fire is going to burn until the coming of Mashiach. And everybody understood that it means that his Torah is going to burn until the Mashiach comes. His Torah is going to be there. What it means is that his Torah is going to be the Torah that gives us fire when we're in those times, those most difficult, dark times, when we get closer to the end, before Mashiach comes. And this is the truth. There's no two ways about it. The Torah of Rebbe Nachman is Torah for it's like how there's a funny saying that they say, how the Tanya, the name of the main book of the Tanya, Likutei Moharan, is called the Sefer Shel Beinonim, the book of mid-level people, right? Then they say that the Sefer the Noam Elimelech is called the Sefer Shel Tzadikim, the Sefer for the Tzadikim, and the Likutei Moharan is the Torah for the Rishayim.
No.
Yeah.
So funny.
It's said sometimes as a joke. Sometimes people say also that the Likutei Moharan is the Torah of the Tzadikim. But I personally think that it's the biggest compliment, and it's the best. It's the best thing you could say, right? Anyone can write. I'm joking, but not anyone. But to write Torah that's for the highest people who are almost perfect, that's one thing. But to make Torah that goes to the deepest levels, the lowest levels, and pulls everything up, you can only Rebbe Nachman can pull people up from the lowest of the low and lift them up so high. Tremendous koyach. Yeah. Anyone else?
Thank you. That word was translated by Google as boundaries, which isn't exactly.
Okay, everybody have an awesome week, and we'll see you next. Happy Tu B'Av yesterday. Tu B'Av Sameach. Okay, we'll speak to you all soon. Love you guys. Bye. Okay.